the teacher who secretly led a double life as a serial killer. In the quiet suburbs of Willow Creek, few people stood out as much as Mr. Daniel Cross, a respected high school history teacher admired by students and parents alike, known for his sharp wit, his endless patience, and his ability to make the past feel alive. He was the kind of teacher who stayed late to tutor struggling kids, who drove out of his way to drop off assignments for sick students, who smiled at every parent-teacher conference and made them feel their children were in safe hands. To everyone, Daniel Cross was the definition of trustworthy. But behind that flawless reputation, he carried a darkness no one could see. A double life that would leave his entire community shaken to its core. Because while his students were memorizing dates of wars and revolutions, while parents praised his dedication and colleagues respected his passion, Daniel was hunting. Hunting at night, hunting far from the bright lights of classrooms and PTA meetings. And no one, not his friends, not his students, not even his closest family, suspected a thing. It all began with a missing woman. 26-year-old Emily Carson vanished after leaving a late-night diner. The police assumed it was random, a mugging gone wrong. But there was no body, no evidence, no trail, just another cold case, until another woman disappeared 6 months later, and then another. Each vanished under similar circumstances. Same town, same eerie details. The only thing missing from the puzzle was a suspect. Meanwhile, Daniel Cross was still teaching his students about the rise and fall of empires, still running school plays, still grading papers into the night. And to anyone looking, he was nothing but ordinary. But the cracks were there, tiny inconsistencies that almost no one paid attention to. He often came to school with faint scratches on his hands. Sometimes his shirt cuffs were stained, and he would laugh it off as spilled coffee or red ink. His neighbors reported hearing his car start at 2 a.m., and when asked, he casually claimed insomnia. To most, it seemed harmless. But to detectives, those small details would eventually become red flags. The turning point came when a jogger stumbled on a shallow grave in a wooded area just outside town. The remains were badly decomposed, but the discovery revealed something chilling. Buried alongside the body was a necklace that had once belonged to Emily Carson. DNA confirmed the victim's identity, and suddenly the missing persons case was now a homicide investigation. The town of Willow Creek panicked. For years, they had believed their community was safe. But the killer wasn't an outsider. He was one of them. Police formed a task force. They canvassed neighborhoods, checked alibis, and pulled surveillance footage from nearby highways. Still, nothing. The killer was careful, methodical. He left no fingerprints, no weapons, no witnesses. And in classrooms across town, Daniel Cross carried on with his life, watching silently as the fear spread, while secretly taking pleasure in the chaos he created. Then came the break. A student accidentally found something he wasn't supposed to see. While waiting in Cross's classroom after school, he noticed a drawer slightly open. Inside were odd items. A woman's earring, a driver's license that didn't belong to Cross, and what looked like a torn piece of fabric, stained dark. The student didn't understand what it meant, but when he casually mentioned it to his parents, word quickly made its way to authorities. Detectives secured a warrant. They searched Cross's home, expecting nothing more than a strange misunderstanding. But what they uncovered was far worse than anyone imagined. Hidden in the basement were boxes filled with personal belongings, jewelry, IDs, clothing, all linked to missing women. Even more disturbing, a journal documenting each disappearance, written in precise detail, with dates, times, and chilling notes about the victims. Cross was immediately arrested, but the case was far from simple, because when questioned, he didn't break, didn't confess, and didn't even deny it. He simply smiled and said, "You don't know the half of it." Investigators realized they might have uncovered only a fraction of his crimes. As word spread, the community was in shock. Parents who had once trusted him with their children now realized he was a monster living in plain sight. Students broke down in tears, struggling to reconcile the kind teacher they loved with the killer he truly was. The most terrifying question remained unanswered. Just how many victims were there? Forensic teams worked around the clock, testing evidence from his basement. The belongings pointed to at least 10 women who had gone missing over the past decade, some cases stretching back years before the town even suspected a serial killer was at work. Each piece of evidence painted a darker picture. This wasn't random. This was ritual. This was obsession. But there was one last twist, because hidden deep in his journal was a cryptic set of entries, referring not to strangers but to people close to him. Names of colleagues, names of students, names of families in his very neighborhood. It was no longer just about unsolved murders. It was about potential victims still alive. The investigation took a new turn. Detectives began cross-referencing every name, desperate to determine whether these people were in danger. That's when they discovered something even more shocking. Several of the names on the list had already gone missing in nearby towns, cases never connected until now. Daniel Cross wasn't just a local killer. He had been operating across state lines, living his double life undetected for years. The FBI stepped in. His home became a crime scene swarming with federal agents. Media outlets descended on Willow Creek. Every headline screamed the same chilling truth. The beloved teacher was a predator hiding in plain sight. Yet Cross remained calm, almost smug, as if he had planned this all along. And investigators feared that he still had secrets he hadn't revealed. Victims they hadn't found. Crimes they hadn't even connected yet. As the trial approached, prosecutors prepared to deliver one of the most explosive cases in recent history. Families of the victims sat in silent agony, waiting for answers, waiting for justice. But Cross continued to toy with authorities, dropping hints of crimes that stretched far beyond what anyone expected. And with each revelation, the number of potential victims grew. Because Daniel Cross wasn't just a teacher who lived a double life. He was a serial killer whose reach might be far greater than anyone could imagine. And just when investigators thought they had finally uncovered the full truth, a shocking discovery would turn the entire case upside down. Daniel Cross sat in his cell, calm, collected, almost smug. To the world, he was a monster. To himself, he was untouchable. Investigators believed they had finally unmasked a teacher who had been hiding in plain sight. But they were about to learn they had only scratched the surface. The courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the halls. Parents who once trusted him with their children now stared at him with rage. Students cried in disbelief. The once adored history teacher was now the face of evil. Prosecutors laid out their evidence, the journals, the jewelry, the IDs, the forensic matches. Jurors gasped as they realized how long he had been hunting while living a life of normalcy. But then came the twist. During pretrial discovery, defense attorneys revealed something chilling. Daniel Cross claimed he wasn't the only one. He hinted that his journal wasn't just a record of his crimes. It was a collaboration, a network, a group. And the entries with other names? They weren't just potential targets. They were participants. Authorities dismissed it at first, assuming it was another sick game. But then evidence surfaced that changed everything. Surveillance footage, financial records, encrypted emails, suggesting Cross wasn't working alone. Suddenly, the question wasn't just how many people did he kill. It was who else was involved. The trial dragged on for weeks. Witnesses took the stand. Former students described him as kind and gentle. Detectives detailed the horrors found in his basement. Experts painted the profile of a meticulous predator. But as damning as the case was, Cross never broke. He listened, silent, expressionless, sometimes even smirking, as if he held secrets no one else could touch. Then, in a shocking turn, Cross demanded to testify. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Against his lawyer's advice, he took the stand. His voice was calm, almost hypnotic, as he told his story. He admitted to killings. He described his urges. But then he dropped the bombshell that left everyone frozen. He named names. Prominent names. People in positions of power. A local business owner. A church leader. Even a former law enforcement officer. He claimed they were part of the same secret world, that he wasn't just killing, he was following orders. The judge silenced the chaos in the courtroom. The prosecution scrambled. The defense grinned. Was Cross lying to save himself? Or had they just uncovered something far bigger than one man? Investigators rushed to fact-check his claims, and that's when the panic began. Because one of the names he gave, one of the supposed collaborators, had already vanished. No trace, no warning, just gone. The timing was too precise to ignore. If Cross was lying, it was elaborate. If he was telling the truth, then a much larger conspiracy was unfolding in real time. Meanwhile, behind bars, Cross continued his cryptic act. He sent letters filled with strange symbols. He refused meals. He whispered to guards at night, promising that it isn't over. Detectives feared he was orchestrating something from inside, something dangerous. As the jury deliberated, the weight of his testimony hung in the air. Was he a lone predator, or was Willow Creek hiding a deeper evil beneath its surface? Just as the verdict was about to be read, news broke from outside the courtroom. Another body had been found, same method, same signature, but Daniel Cross had been in custody the entire time. The courtroom erupted, families screamed, prosecutors were blindsided, and the entire case was thrown into chaos. Had they arrested the wrong man? Or was someone else carrying out his work on the outside? The trial halted. The investigation exploded into a nationwide manhunt. And Daniel Cross, smirking in his cell, said just 5 words that froze detectives in their tracks. "I told you, I'm not alone."